See, that was it made, when I was reading that part of the book, it made me think also about slavery. And I remember talking to someone who had been doing a lot of research into climate change. They basically said the only reason slavery really ended was technology. So because no longer was this required. And that bit when you see the financial implications and how much we can change our ethics based on, well, hang on a minute, how much, and that was, I think, quite, because you also mentioned in the UK during daytime TV, there are nearly always adverts about for donkey charities. And you talk, for instance, in the book as well about, again, things like that, which is the part that donkeys have played in the change in our civilization.
Yeah, animals have had a huge impact on the way that we work, the way that we view property, the way that our cities are structured. I mean, London used to be overrun with horses, and the whole architecture of how we've created everything had to do with the animals that we were working with at the time. And of course, I think robots are poised to do the same thing and have the same kind of disruptive effects on anything from architecture to how we currently use animals or technology. And it's just really important to me that we see this and make conscious decisions as it's happening, rather than viewing it as this inevitable thing that can only go one way.
Yeah, we can also hope that things like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep will have its, all of those different things in pop culture. Again, the fictional world has been dealing with some of these things far before the practical and academic. I also wanted to ask you about what for you in your lifetime has been the most startling development, because there's a lovely a series called 7 Wonders of the World, where each week a different scientist would talk about their wonders. And James Lovelock, famously the Gaia theory, proponent of Gaia theory, there's a lovely clip of him saying walking, to him, human ability to walk is one of, on 2 legs, is remarkable. He said, because you can teach robots all manner of things, but you'll never be able to get to teach a robot to walk. And of course, about 6 years after he did that in the late 90s, you see all of this incredible footage. And again, it feels, you really do anthropomorphize with, I forget which Japanese company it was that made the first 2-legged walking robots, but that seemed to be a fast thing which many people had not predicted. What for you are the ones that you just think, now that I was not expecting?
I have been, it's probably similar because I work so closely with the roboticists, and I've seen the technology up close, and I know that robots fall over a lot and they break a lot. And it's so hard to develop a robot that is robust enough to actually put in a factory or put in someone's home. It's very difficult. People totally overestimate how far we are in technology development. I would say I've probably been most impressed by a company called Boston Dynamics. They make these YouTube videos that are very popular, of very biologically inspired robots. And I was a skeptic at first. I was like, okay, sure. How many takes did they have to do before they got the one where it doesn't fall over? Or did they speed this up? Or like, how is this staged? And, but I've been to visit them, and their technology is really impressive. They've really been able to make robots that are more robust and functional than a lot of the robots that I've seen before. So it's taken them decades and a lot of money and a lot of work, and the robots are too expensive to be really useful for anything, but it's very, very impressive technology, even if people still overestimate what it can do.
Now, we're going to start taking audience questions in a moment, but it's an interesting thing, again, something I had absolutely no idea about, where you talk about the fact that when pets were really beginning to become, in the 20th century, a major part of many humans' lives, there were psychologists who were worried that this would somehow affect actually our behavior human to human. And then later on, you do also mention the woman who wanted to marry the Eiffel Tower and the man who went to court because he wasn't allowed to marry his computer. So these concerns, this bit of what if, yeah, I'm interested to know more actually just about those psychologists and about that wariness of, will the pets replace humans?
Yeah, when I believe it was when dogs were kind of becoming part of the American family and no longer just tasked with guarding the home, but actually coming into the home and being a family member. yeah, there was some concern that people would develop these emotional relationships to the animals, and that would take away from their human relationships, especially people who already were predisposed to, be kind of introverts or not want to have too many human friends, that they would pour all of their emotional energy into the dog, and that could be a problem. And of course, we don't see it as a problem anymore. No one really makes that argument anymore. We've seen that relationships to animals are different than relationships to humans, and that they're supplemental. We can have both of them at the same time. They don't take away from each other. In fact, they can even enhance each other. So I do see some of the same concerns with robots as we do develop more social robots, and these social robots are often toys, or they're in nursing homes, or they're sometimes even marketed as something that can help with loneliness. And so people immediately leap to thinking that that's going to replace human relationships. And I think that that's a little bit of an assumption, because looking at the history of how we've kind of folded animals into our families and relationships without blinking an eye and without taking anything away from anything, I think that robots, again, are something different, different to human relationships, different to animal relationships. And we as humans are capable of so many different types of relationships. The relationship that I have with you is not the same relationship that I have to my grocer or my husband, or my dog or my fish. And I think that we will be able to fold robots into that without blinking an eye as well.
Brilliant. Well, this leads very easily into the first question you mentioned there about in terms of with the elderly, and how sometimes you mentioned earlier on about some of the I think it was a seal, wasn't it, that was used in some care homes. And our first question is, how long do you think it will be before robots are used to provide social care?
I think they already do provide social care, very, very primitive social care, like the seal, where it's not, it's not playing a card game with you, but it's there, and its presence can be comforting. And I do think that social care is different, and it's always going to be different than what a human can provide. So I don't think we should be trying to develop robots that can replace human care or human social connections in those contexts. But a robot can be better than nothing, or even a replacement for animals where we can't use animal therapy. But ideally, the robot is just an additional tool that is an additional social thing that we can interact with in these contexts, or that can be given to people in these contexts that can help, but rather than try to replace something.
Well, Heidi, I hope that answered your question. Heidi doesn't retire for 20 years, so she's hopeful that her and her husband will have something. Jill says, as human design of AI has advanced so much in the last 50 years, it seems possible that within the coming 50 years, some humans will design AI robots which are highly beneficial, and other humans will design AI robots to control or kill other humans accurately, something we were talking about earlier on. So you will have cheap and accessible criminals and authoritarian regimes. How can we plan international laws? Now, that's a very the idea of international treaties or agreements on this.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because like you say, these are human choices, and there are lots of different humans with different motivations, right? So we may see, as with other technologies as well, we may see uses of this that contribute to human flourishing, and uses that are selfish or in someone's interest, or harmful to other people. So yeah, on the international law front, it's very, very difficult, particularly because there's kind of a trend right now toward trying to have the best AI, where countries are very reluctant to restrict any of the development of this technology, and passing laws to regulate technology will restrict some of the development. And so I know that, so I have some colleagues who have been fighting for many years now to get the UN to pass a ban on automated weapon systems. So weapon systems that can kill a human without a human giving a command or giving that input or having a direct involvement in that. And you would think that that would be a no-brainer, that that's something that's bad, that maybe we should have a ban on until we can figure out how to regulate this in a more nuanced way as the technology develops. But they've had a lot of trouble getting countries to agree to sign on to this ban. Some UN countries have signed on and many have not. And there are countries like China who probably never will unless there's some huge political change. So it's very difficult to get consensus, and I do worry that their arms race is happening. So that's not a very optimistic or hopeful answer, but that's what's going on right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill, for that question. Shanti would like to know, when do you think marrying a virtual partner will be the norm?
I don't know that it will ever be the norm. I'm usually kind of on the side of, progressive. Yeah, anything can happen. I think it's possible that people will want to marry an AI. I think that that's probably already happened in some cases. I think it's kind of outside of the norm, though, and probably will remain so, just because unless we change the definition of what marriage is, because I don't think that an artificial intelligence is ever going to be a good replacement for a human partner. I think it's going to be something different. That's not to say that people won't want to marry, their robot companions, and more power to them if that's what they want. If that makes them happy, I'm fine with that. But I don't think that people are generally going to use robots to replace human partners. It's the same thing as worrying about someone getting a dog. I don't worry about someone getting a dog. I don't think that that's going to prevent them from having a relationship to a human. In fact, it makes me happy when they get a dog, because it will make them possibly less lonely if they don't have a lot of human friends. So that's kind of how I'm viewing the AIs. But yeah, if you want to marry your robot, go for it.
Do you know what happened then to Chris Siva? You mentioned him, the man who wanted to marry his computer and went to court. Do we know where him and his computer are now?
I actually don't. I do know that, there are always people. I mean, humanity is such a wide spectrum of different, preferences and desires and what people want. So yeah, you're always going to have people like Chris who wanted to marry his computer. And I don't actually know where they are today. I hope that they're happy.
Blake would like to know, Blake's working on a script about a therapist using robot therapy with her patients, and just wondered where the best place was to look to learn more about how robots are currently being used in medicine for therapy.
Where's the best place to look? That's a good question. So the seal that I mentioned is called the Paro, and it's been around for over a decade now, and there's lots of research on it at this point. And it's a medical device. It has FDA approval in the US, and I don't know what the equivalent is in England, but it has it in a lot of different countries. So that's an interesting one. But there's a lot going on in the medicine space, and I don't know of a place to look where all of that would be like in one place where you could learn about that. I don't know. You can try emailing me, and if I think of something, I can send it along to you. But there is a lot going on in that space. It's very interesting. So that's a good question.
And we've also got a question from Polly, who says, I really enjoyed Ex Machina, and I wondered if you had a particular favorite film that was looking at the highs and lows of robot-human relationships.
I do. And Ex Machina I really enjoyed. I thought it was especially a good kind of primer on AI, and beautifully done, really well done. My favorite is actually a lesser known film called Robot and Frank. It actually has a kind of an all-star cast and is a quite good movie. I don't know why it didn't get more attention at the time, but it looks at the issues from a slightly different lens than, will robots become artificially super intelligent and screw us over in some way, which Ex Machina falls again into that, I want to say, trope, because it's just been done many, many times. We are very fascinated with this narrative, and Robot and Frank is different. And I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil the movie, but you should check it out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. I should say that your book is out now. There we are, The New Breed, both in the US and the UK, and I imagine going to be in a lot of other places. And as I said to you at the beginning, before we start this, it's a very trustworthy book. It has a lot of footnotes, so you know you can trust the book that has a lot of footnotes. Have you got any plans for, I mean, obviously you are incredibly busy at the moment, but has finishing this led to you thinking of what you want to explore next in terms of in book form?
Well, not in book form. I'm actually so eager to get back into the lab and do more experiments, which we haven't been able to do because of the pandemic. But we have a lot of stuff planned, and I can't wait to get back to working with the students. And then, you know, once we learn more things, there will be more books to write, I'm sure.
What's the experiment that, if you could go straight back in the lab now, what's number one?
Oh gosh, well, this one isn't even in the lab, but we were planning on doing one. I mentioned that our grocery stores have this robot now named Marty. And one of the students and I, the student Daniela Di Paola, is obsessed with this robot because everyone hates it. And we wanted to go and do a more in-depth qualitative study on why people dislike this robot and what about the design, because we have some hunches, but we want to see what it is.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. As I said, Kate's book is available now. I think the next show I'm doing with How To may well be with Tim Harford and Brian Green coming up soon as well. Thanks very much for joining us, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Robin. This was so much fun.